everybody. Welcome back. This week's What's on My Mind with your host, Victoria Robinson. And we are going to continue our conversation with Nate Larkin, who is the founder of Samson Society. We were talking last week about the porn addiction that's rampant throughout this country, throughout society, and just as much in the church as outside of the church, the whys, what to do about it, how it's affecting marriages, how it's affecting the brain of men who are addicted to pornography, and how they go from soft porn to hiring prostitutes to even worse. So I want to bring back my guest today, Mr. Nate Larkin. Hey, Nate.
Hey, Victoria.
Well, welcome back, Nate. Yeah. I wanted to continue this conversation. I know we are just continuing it, but this will give my producer, Marisa, a chance to kind of cut it however she wants to cut it. Yeah. So, Nate, when we ended the show last, you were talking about when you felt fear, and that fear is one of those triggers that people, when they're, whatever their addiction is, that they go right to that addiction if they have not been healed from it. Your addiction was pornography. So we're feeling all these fear about bills and finances and your marriage, et cetera, et cetera. And you said you woke up in the middle of the night while your wife was asleep beside you, went into your office, booted up the computer, and went right back to your addiction. Talk about that and pick it up from there, Nate.
Yeah. So, time disappeared that night, as it does, by the way, when we're viewing porn. Sexual acting out is fundamentally, it's dissociative behavior. For us, we kind of go away from ourselves to do this thing. That's how I was able to toggle between two people. Even during my ministry, I could be cruising for prostitutes at 1 or 2 in the morning, but that was dissociative behavior. And then I could be back in the pulpit at 10, passionately and sincerely talking about the gospel, and then wondering how in blazes that could happen, right?
Right. Well, the Lord used an ass to bring Jesus down the hill. So, it can happen, Nate.
Yeah. So all I know is all of a sudden I looked up and my wife is standing there. And this bolt of fear and shame ran through me. And Allie didn't say anything. She just turned around and went back to the bedroom. I quickly, shut everything down and followed her back in, apologizing and explaining and promising and begging. It was a very long night, but she forgave me. A few weeks later, though, she found a condom on the floor in the bathroom that I couldn't quite explain.
Oh.
And that's when she sat me down on the edge of our bed and she said the words that saved my life. She said, "I'm done." She said, "I still love you, but I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't respect you. And I don't think you can ever change."
Wow.
Those were the words that gave me the gift of desperation. It was in a desperate bid to save my only real friendship that I did something I'd never done before and actually go for help.
Wow.
That's when I went back to the computer and, to the Alta Vista search engine. This is pre-Google days. I'll tell you how old I am.
So this was when you went back to the computer looking for the right help.
Exactly. These days, people go there and they find the Samson Society. I Googled sex addiction Nashville and found, to my astonishment, that I'd apparently moved to the center of the universe for sex addiction recovery.
Wow. How did you choose where to go?
Huh?
How did you
I picked something from the top of the listing. There was a phone number. I called it. I left a message. A few minutes later, somebody called me back to tell me where there was a meeting that night at a church a couple towns away at 7:00. I got there at 6:30. Sat in the parking lot while other people drove up and went inside. I couldn't find the courage to get out of my car.
Wow.
7:15, I drove away, spent an hour driving around, coming up with the story I would tell Allie. I didn't need to bother. She wasn't talking. A week later, I was back and about to drive away for the second time when I saw a guy I recognized from church.
Oh, wow.
And Victoria, he was just a guy But I knew a little about this guy. I'd heard him speak up sometimes in men's Bible studies, and there was just something about him I liked. He seemed comfortable in his own skin. It didn't seem like he needed to impress anybody. Very clear that he loved Jesus. But here was the most striking thing about this guy. This guy talked about his sin in the present tense without shame. I followed him inside. And in the basement of that church, in the middle of the week, while all the good people were gone, I had the experience that changed my life. Not immediately. I mean, it would, because of my own intellectual and spiritual arrogance, it would actually be a couple of years before I experienced true sexual sobriety. But the process started that night. And I got to tell you, I came out of that basement furious that I had spent a lifetime in church and I had never been in a room that safe.
Oh my, wait, that right there is not only heartbreaking and telling, but that is really profound, Nate.
Yeah.
That is very unfortunate. I mean, we always tell people the church is the hospital for the sick people, but we never address the diseases.
Yeah.
We never show them the cure. I mean, yes, we talk about Jesus, and listen, I know you're not, and neither am I, downplaying the healing Jesus brought to me from having an abortion and for you from having sex addiction. But we can't say to people, just go pray. You're not praying enough. Tell God, you said you begged God to deliver you. And I can't say that I wouldn't say someone could say that to me and I wouldn't believe them, that God delivered them from an addiction, because I know he can do it.
Sure he can.
But if we're being honest, Nate, it takes a lot more surrendering, right? Am I saying that right?
Absolutely. And it's a surrender not just to Christ. See, I'd always been willing to trust Christ. I'd never been willing to trust the body of Christ. The body of Christ had not proven itself trustworthy, right?
Yes, correct.
And I certainly did not believe that Jesus is physically present on this planet in the lives of broken people. But I got to tell you, in that room, I had never heard honesty like that. I'd never seen vulnerability, humility like that. I never felt empathy like that. I'd never heard Jesus like I heard him in that room from a bunch of Samaritans who didn't even seem to know his proper name. They kept referring to him as a higher power.
Oh, wow. That is so good, Nate, because the truth does say, the Bible even says the truth sets you free. And people think, well, what does that mean? That's what it means, you guys. It means being honest and transparent about who we really are. Yet the problem is the church, where we should be able to go and speak the truth and be set free, we can't.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, my ambition was exposed eventually. I mean, I really didn't want to be a Christian. I wanted to be a successful Pharisee. I said that what I wanted was to be relieved of this addiction, but what I really wanted, Victoria, was moral self-sufficiency. I wanted to be able to meet all of God's standards for holiness on my own. And I never wanted to to show my weakness and vulnerability and failures, my desperate need for grace in any detail to anybody else.
Because we believe, especially men, Nate, do you think that shows weakness instead of strength?
Yeah. And I was also certain, by the way, that, I had this ambition to be a force for good in the world, a force for the kingdom, a leader. I thought any hopes for ministry would be over if people found out my real story.
Yet look what God's done. You are
That's
the founder
where it all
of
started.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You're the founder of Samson Society. You've got men who are now coming to you because they feel safe to experience what you did that first night. And God was saying, I'm sure, to both of us with our different history, mine with abortion that I hid for 10 years, thinking the same thing. I'm going to be judged, condemned. I'm not going to have friends. I'll be rejected by
Mhm.
everybody.
Sure.
Yet once I finally felt safe in the safe
Yeah.
place that you're talking
Yeah.
about, because it was
Yeah.
a safe place
Yeah.
to tell someone my truth and then got the help I needed, that's when everything changed.
Yeah.
And that's
I
why I
thought,
love what you said on the previous episode. You were saying, Nate, that that's what the enemy does, that Satan, the devil,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
people call him, he keeps us in isolation. If he can keep our sin in secret in the darkness and not bring it
yeah,
into the light, that's what cripples us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
was, yeah, I was desperate to build and save and preserve a reputation,
yeah.
right? And I told myself that somehow, I don't know, I'm responsible for the reputation of the church, and it's going to reflect bad on Jesus or whatever if I ever get honest. So I kind of have an obligation as a Christian to hide my sin in order to make Jesus look good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We have the biggest egos, don't we? We are.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I thought people would run in horror if they ever found out how totally messed up I am, how broken I am, how deep in the weeds I have gotten, and
But
how
yet,
much
I
in
bet, Nate,
process I still
it
am.
was the opposite. People were
The
running to
app,
you. Yeah.
I became freaking magnetic
People are
because if
running
I
to
would tell
you
my
with that
story,
sin, Nate. You know why? Because they feel safe and they feel like,
yes,
oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. All these years, I
yeah,
thought I was the only
yeah,
one in the
yeah,
church dealing with
yeah,
this. No, we're
yeah,
not. That's why it's so important, Nate, that people like you are invited to speak in pulpits, that people like you are invited to come and speak truth in a church setting, because how many of those men and the women in return, because it's their
yeah,
husbands or their boyfriends,
yeah.
are dealing with the issue of sex addiction?
Sure, right, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's huge, and I think, by the way, if we're willing to talk about it and confront it and offer the gospel as an effective treatment for it, really, I mean, I accepted Jesus when I was you know a tiny kid. Right? I grew up getting saved every summer, right?
Yeah.
But I really think I became a Christian when I was willing to trust him for all of this. It's amazing that addiction and recovery actually saved my faith.
You know, that makes sense though, Nate, because you met the true Jesus,
Yeah,
not the one that you were putting airs on for, not the
yeah,
one that you thought you had to do this, do that, do this, and a faith of works, a
right,
faith
yeah,
of being a fraud, a faith of hiding things because everyone will think Jesus isn't good if I fail.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and if people look at us and put us on a pedestal as Christians,
right,
well, they're screwed up. They're
yeah,
done. I mean, they're
yeah, yeah,
because I always tell people, do not ever look at me, look at him,
mhm,
because I will
yeah,
disappoint you and let you down.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
you met the true Jesus, Nate,
yeah,
when the biggest secret and the most grotesque secret
yeah,
that you were hiding, and is when you became the most vulnerable.
yeah, yeah. But I had to find a safe place to do it, and those guys made it safe for me by telling their own stuff. Right? That's
Yes.
how I make. Okay. Uh, and then I was really surprised by what I remember. I got my first sponsor in 12-step recovery. You get a sponsor, right? It's somebody who's a couple steps ahead who can help guide you on this
Yeah.
healing journey. And so I did my first step where I did my best to recount for him kind of my sexual history. It was so painful to do that, and I'd forgotten most of it and blocked it, but I had pages and pages that I'd written. And I remember meeting him at a park to do the first step to show him what I'd done. Just nervous as anything. We sat down on this bench, and the first thing he said to me was, "So before we get started, what's the one thing you didn't write down?"
Oh, that's so good.
And what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, "The thing you didn't write down." I said, "What makes you think I didn't write? What makes you think you saw it?" He said, "Come on, what is it?" So I told him. And then he said, "Good. Now read the rest of it to me." And I did. And then we very ceremoniously burned it. And then he said, "Nate, your biggest problem is you think that sex is your problem. I looked at him like it was crazy. Like, had he been listening to this thing?
Yeah.
And he went, well, it is a problem. It's a big problem. You have to stop. You can't stop on your own. God's going to have to do it. He's probably going to use us in the process. But if you think that just stopping that behavior is going to fix you and make you happy, you are crazy.
Right.
If anything, if you somehow miraculously succeed in stopping that behavior and nothing else changes, you will become more miserable and more miserable to be around than you are now, he said, because sex isn't your problem. He said, sex is your favorite solution. It is the medication that you've been using all these years to numb the pain caused by your deeper problems, which, by the way, are common to man. So he said, I'm not volunteering to be your accountability partner. He says, I'm not the sex police. Yes, we'll talk about that. He said, but we have bigger fish to fry. You have far more healing and far more repenting to do than you know. We got a lot to talk about. Trauma and fear and pride and anger and unbelief and resentment and self-pity and self-centeredness. We got a lot to cover.
Is that the root, Nate, basically?
Yeah. And I had to become willing, Victoria, to join the human race. To become another bozo on the bus. I'd always been willing to help people, and people came to me for help. People came to me for advice. I gave good advice.
Yeah.
Which led me to the flawed conclusion that I can be my own advisor.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying?
That is so good, because I can think of people, as you say that, who do that exact same thing, Nate.
Yeah.
They're great at giving advice. They're in ministry and they give advice. They're probably doing the same thing, which is why their lives are still such a wreck.
Here's what I know. There are whole parts of my life I can't see because I'm inside it.
Ooh.
On my own, I walk in circles, but with another man, I can walk in straight lines. So I had to become willing. I mean, when I first started going to these meetings, I had no interest in joining a group. You know, I thought, frankly, that I had an information problem. I'd spent years searching for the final piece of the puzzle, you know, the key insight, the scripture, the ritual, whatever it was that would make it possible for me finally to overcome this compulsion on my own. And I thought that maybe I had finally found the people who had the secret information. Turns out there isn't any secret information. There's lots of wisdom, but it's thousands of years old, and it's no secret. And I did not have an information problem. I had a relationship problem.
Yeah.
I was well known, but nobody knew me.
Wow.
And I was trying to do, turns out I am a colossal failure as a solo disciple for a simple reason. Jesus doesn't have any solo disciples. That's never been the plan. He first said, follow me, to 2 guys. Not just 1, and quickly added 10 more to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Had them farm around together for a couple of years as he taught them that the most important thing was that they love each other.
Yep.
And toward the end of his ministry, as he was preparing to leave, he sat them down. He said, look, I'm going away soon, but I'll still be with you under this condition. When 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, I'll be there.
Oh, that's so good.
See, he came. I was asking him for something. He came to reconcile us to God and to each other. He came to reconcile, to reconstitute the family of God. And he says that every one of us, none of us are alone. All of us are just members of a body, a living, breathing thing whose members are so closely are connected that we can only move together. I had to be willing to become part of a body. And the need that I was trying to meet, the need that pornography pretended to meet, but only made the hunger deeper, was a need for connection, a need for intimacy, a need to be a part of someone and something. And because I didn't know how to be emotionally present with anybody, I couldn't be emotionally present with my wife. Here's the one thing that happened. As I started, it was so strange and so hard for us the first couple of years of recovery, because it was such a big blow for Allie, especially when she found out about the hookers and the whole deal. I mean, that was
Right.
just a devastating thing. And it was with the help of some other people that we managed not to separate. And we were, and you know, we thank God we had been friends, and we were at least able to be friends for a while.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But as I learned, first of all, I had to learn the language of the heart. I'd been so cut off from my own heart, right? Living from the neck up because I'm a smart guy. I'd lost the language of the heart. I didn't know what I was feeling at any given time. And I'd spent years trying to, I've spent years doing irrational things for non-rational reasons, trying to solve the problem by rational means.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now I find myself finally in a room where I'm safe enough to talk about my fear, my sadness, my anger. Oh yeah, started to get in touch. And Jesus said that it's really out of the heart that our life comes.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know what I'm what I feel is the best, most reliable predictor of what I'm most likely to do next. And if I don't know what I feel, my behavior is always going to mystify me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
But as I was able to finally get some emotional connection, I learned emotional intimacy first sitting with other addicts in a circle. And then I could say things there I'd never said out loud before. And then I could come home and say those same things at home. And Allie's kind of got to see after a while, and it's amazing how as the healing happens, the behavior starts to change. The kind of character change that I had worked so hard to try to create for so many years and never made any progress at all, slowly began to happen in time as I began to heal. And I'm still very much in process, but I will tell you, I mean, Allie will tell anybody that she's been married to two guys named Nate Larkin.
Oh, wow. So Nate, I want to ask you a couple questions as we come to the end of our part 2.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk to both people. First one, and then the second one. The first one is that wife or that girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who truly loves. I mean, Allie, I'm pro Allie. Okay.
Yeah.
Hashtag Team Allie, man. She is that woman who truly loves her husband, or maybe she's engaged to someone, she's dating someone that women love hard, and women will put up with a lot of things. That's one thing I see about women, that I think that's a quality about us, about women. What would you say to her before she married him, or if she's in the marriage with him? I'd love to interview Allie sometime, because I'd love to hear her perspective. What would you think Allie would say, or what you would say to her, since you've been counseling these men now for so many years? What would you say to that woman? And then my second question would be, a man is listening and he knows he's where you were. His wife has no idea. He has not crossed the line of hiring prostitutes, or maybe he has, or maybe he's in a physical affair with someone he works with, or someone in the church. Who knows? He's crossed a line, he knows, and he's faking it. He's a fraud. He's basically living a fraudulent lifestyle, and probably pretty miserable.
Yeah.
And he's listening, going, okay, what do I do? What's the first thing that I do? So talk to that wife or girlfriend, or the woman who's just gotten involved with someone in that. Does she run? Do you say, run? You don't have kids with him, run, stay away. Yeah. What does she do? And then what would you say to the man?
First of all, I would say, if you're just getting involved with a guy and he tries to tell you that he's never seen porn or he doesn't like porn, run. That guy's not honest.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. But at the same time,
wait, Nate, does that mean you're saying? I recently, I was recently on a date with someone months and months ago, and that subject came up, and I was like, kind of uncomfortable with why it even came up. I barely knew the guy, and then when I said, it sounds like you have a lot of experience watching porn. Oh no. Oh no, I don't. I've just heard about it. I'm like, okay, right. I'll just tell you this. I never went out with him again.
yeah. But it's inescapable now. It's absolutely inescapable. Everybody has seen porn.
Yep.
And porn is, designed and targeted. I'm not saying. I mean, Allie has had the same reaction to pornography that you described. She's never found it appealing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But
But by the way, I will tell you
ahead.
that the fastest growing group among the sexually addicted is female right now.
That's what I was asking you about.
Yeah.
It seems like
Yeah.
it's increasing. And is it because of men? Is it the men who are bringing the women in, saying this is good, this will enhance our sex life, make me
And
happy, we'll do it? Why?
I think it's a few things. I think first of all, women wondering where men gone, where have the men gone, and they what do the men find? What is it going to take to satisfy and attract a man? And that's
wow.
being defined by the pornographers. So young girls these days are willing to do things that girls were never willing to do when I was young.
Oh,
okay?
Right.
I refer to it sadly as kind of the slutification of the American girl. It's sad.
Yeah, that is so sad.
Also, the pornographers very cynically, they have to grow their business. They see this is a prime a growth segment, a growth opportunity. They have poured millions of dollars into creating porn specifically for women that has more of a storyline, more of a romantic slant. It builds on the old romance novels, which we used to call mommy porn back in the day. But let's turn those into video, and now let's make them explicit. And what happens now is that when husband and wife get together in the privacy of the bedroom, each of them is there with a cast of hundreds of thousands. There are other people in the room.
Yeah.
So that real connection cannot happen. And what should be communion becomes performance,
Yeah. So would you tell her run, Nate? Would you tell her? I mean, Allie stayed. Allie stuck it out. Now she's the husband who's been for years.
Help that, first of all, Allie gave me a gift, a real gift, by not putting up with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she also she gave me time and space to deal with it. She didn't exit right away. She kind of removed herself emotionally for a while, and she watched.
Okay, but that's somebody that's married. You're talking about, and kudos to Allie. You're in a marriage 20 years in. I mean, and now I do want you to continue to address that, but what about, there's so many women dating men who are addicted to porn.
Yeah.
They walk down
Find a guy who is in, here's the thing. It's an unsafe relationship, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If the only true friend that guy has is you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
My good friend Scott Grissom, when he talks to college guys, he'll often say, guys, look, if 5 years from now, you've met the most beautiful girl in the world and you're married and she's your best friend, you have found a beautiful and wonderful thing. But if 5 years from now, you've met that girl and she is your only friend,
right,
you're screwed, and so is she.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's interesting, Nate, because I tell young women when they come to me, these college age or women older, even my age, I always ask them, and see, I didn't think I was so smart, Nate. I think I'm smarter than I think. And I would say to them, does he have friends? What do you mean?
That's it.
I'd be like, you need to make sure he's got friends. And I'm talking good men friends, because guys without friends, that's a red flag in my book. Yeah. I just instinctively felt that, but now you are actually telling me I'm right. You're confirming.
Yeah. And what kind of friends? I mean, it's got to be real friendship.
Yeah.
It's not just this locker room towel snapping.
Yeah, exactly. True.
Where the conversation never ends. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That he truly knows you.
Right. If you can find a guy who is willing to be honest about his brokenness and give you the freedom to be honest about your own, because every woman has her own brokenness.
Yes, for sure.
If you can talk vulnerably with each other, accept each other, and support each other, and he is in if he has a circle of friends, if he is in a fellowship where this kind of transparency, honesty, and mutual support is valued and normative, that's a good guy to marry.
Yep. Yep. So Nate, then, because, you know, I'm telling you, Nate, I am not just talking about my single life. I have a lot of friends who are single. I have a lot of young college age girls that are single, and they're coming to me, and I hear what they're saying is it's not just amongst their age group. It's amongst mine too, in the 50s.
Sure, yeah.
They're telling me there are no good guys, Victoria.
Yeah.
I've met this one guy, but this or that. Well, you're never going to find perfect. So what I hear you saying is if you found a guy and if he tells you he's not ever looked at porn or he hasn't struggled, he's probably lying. But don't give up on him. But make sure XYZ is in place because there is hope for you guys to have intimacy that's healthy.
Oh, yeah. And
you should say, get rid of him.
Allie feels now like she's got about 30 brothers-in-law.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. And she trusts those guys. She trusts me to them. She knows I'm completely honest with them. We have a deal. Allie will always get an honest answer to a direct question. But she is not trying to take charge of my recovery or monitor. If she sees something fishy, she'll ask me. But she just knows I am committed to walking this way, and I am walking in the same direction with a bunch of men.
Right. So she knows you've got men going, snap out of it, buddy. What are you doing? She doesn't have to be on top of you. Yeah, I love that.
We all want to be faithful to our Lord, and we want to be faithful to our wives.
Yeah.
We want to live, okay? Yep. And we need each other in the process. So I'm grateful.
That's going to be very refreshing for girls to hear and women to hear, Nate. Yeah. That you're not saying, because let's face it, I think those statistics are so high of men struggling with some kind of something to do with sex because they're bombarded with it everywhere. That I've heard women say to me, I just give up, Vic. What's the use? And it's going to be good for them to hear you saying, listen, girls, this doesn't mean these guys are bad guys. I don't think you're a bad guy, Nate. I'm sure you were a bad guy when you were in the gutter of this sin. Yeah. You just had something you had to deal with. So girls, listen up. Doesn't mean you just, unless it's like a first, second date and he's talking, get out. Say check, please. That to me is a little weird.
Yeah.
To me, that's fishing, wanting to know what do you think about it? That's good to hear, Nate. And then that would also tell me that you're saying, wives, you don't have to just throw in the towel and give up on your husband.
No.
So now let's address the men. What a man's listening. He's saying, I want to see my marriage. I love this person. I'm about to marry this person. I want to ask her to marry me, but I'm struggling with this. What do you say to him, Nate?
And let's say, first of all, I'd like to offer them to show up at a Samson Society meeting. We now have meetings online.
I've put the website. That's SamsonSociety.com is Nate's website.
Yeah. So we've got online meetings, multiple meetings every day. And you can meet some of the greatest guys in the world who love God, love their wives and girlfriends, or some of them are single. And by the way, Samson Society is not exclusively for porn and sex addicts. Porn addiction, sex addiction is an advantage, but not a requirement for membership. So we have guys who come to Samson for other reasons, because their presenting problem happens to be drugs or alcohol or gaming or gambling or rage.
That's good to know. I'm glad that you said that.
Sure. All addicts really share an inner architecture. We've all found some maladaptive response to trauma. We can't deal with life's terms on our own. We found what seems like a workaround, and now it's deeply rooted and we can't get away from it. I get a lot of help from recovering alcoholics, and I've been able to help a few myself. We're not as unique as we think we are. But and it may not be a Samson meeting, but there are inside the church and outside the church. And if you're a Christian, I would encourage you to go inside the church, but find these pockets of safety and authenticity and vulnerability. find some other people who have given up on trying to proclaim and protect their own righteousness. They're walking confidently in a righteousness that's not their own. They're walking in humility and empathy. And, I had one of the most valuable pieces of advice my first sponsor ever gave me was this. He said, Nate, never trust a man who has not had a head-snapping, bone-crushing collision with his own depravity. Find the broken people who are in the process of healing. Recovery is actually healing. That's what it is. And God is endlessly patient. And usually he's working a far deeper healing than the one we sign up for. We come with what we think is the problem. And then he knows what all the deeper problems are. But find those people and but don't procrastinate. Here's what I know. We do newcomer meetings, online newcomer meetings every day at the Samson Society. I host the one on Saturday mornings. And we always have, 12 or 15 guys a day who sign up to go to the meeting. Typically, around 50% of those guys actually show up. Mm-hmm. Because here's what happens. As soon as we say, I need help, this voice starts up that says, no, you got this.
Yep.
You can do it. You can figure it out. Right?
Yep.
You're
going, so if you could have done it yourself, you'd have done it already.
Exactly. There's plenty of help available. Go for help. And my life, it's not just my marriage. My family got sick. This has saved my marriage. It saved my family. It saved my sanity. It saved my career. Everything has improved. It saved my faith, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
I'm now actually grateful. It sounds crazy. I'm grateful for the addiction, and I think it has made me a better man.
Wow. Thank you, Nate. My gosh, you have to come back. Because I bet you I'm going to get tons of messages with questions that we didn't answer. So maybe what we'll do is I'll offer that opportunity to people to ask questions anonymously. And next time we'll bring you on and we'll answer them. Thank you so much, Nate. The ministry is samsonsociety.com. Make sure that you go look Nate up. He's on Instagram as well. You can find him there. But Nate, thank you so much. Please give your wife, Allie, a big hug. Tell her she's a hero to women of the faith for hanging in there. And I'm dead serious. If she's available and she's interested in doing it, willing, I would love to bring her on because I think that people could learn a lot from her as well. So thanks for being here, Nate.
Thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for all you do, Victoria. I'm really glad you launched this podcast.
Thank you, Nate. I'll be in touch.
Right,
well, you guys, that was Nate Larkin, founder of samsonsociety.com. We had the website up. I think we could have talked another couple hours. So I promise you I will have him back. In the world we're living today, we need to hear those things. So if you're a woman, if you're a wife, if you're a fiance to someone or a girlfriend of someone who is struggling with any of the addictions that Nate talked about, encourage them to go to Samson Society. Maybe slip a little note for them to look it up or have it on your computer. Or maybe you need to do what Allie did and you need to give an ultimatum and you need to let them know, I love you enough to tell you I can't stay and I'm done. Those two words Nate said that changed his life. I'm done. Women, we're not doing our men any favors by allowing them to continue a behavior that's taking them places they don't even want to go. So that's the part we can play as the women in their life. And if you're a man who's struggling, reach out to Nate. He is the real deal. And I think that you have probably learned a lot from him on these 2 episodes, but you can learn even more and get on the online. You don't have to show your picture, I'm sure, on the Zoom thing. I mean, you can just make yourself invisible, but be on there so that you can learn. We need men to stand up. We need you guys to be the men of God that he's called you to be. And whatever addiction you're facing, that's what the enemy's going to use to keep you from being that man. So thanks for listening. That's what was on my mind this week with Victoria Robinson. I'll see you guys next time.